Welcome to the Product Boss Podcast, where we help product-based businesses grow their sales and improve their strategies.
Hey everyone, I want to introduce you to my co-host and biz bestie, Minna an Amazon guru that has built a multi-six-figure product-based business.
And introducing the other half of the Product Boss, Jacqueline Snyder. She has helped launch and grow over 500 fashion apparel and accessory brands, even one of her own.
And together, we share our inventory of secret weapons that will help you dig deep and do the work it takes.
Are you ready? Let's build together.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Product Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Jacqueline Snyder, with my beautiful co-host, Minna Kunlo-Sitep. Hey Minna.
Hey Jacqueline.
I'm so excited about our episode today. Today, we are going to talk about how to get ahead of your competition. And this is something that we have been experiencing personally, where we have been customers of products and businesses where we've been really disappointed in their in the customer service and in it, which has actually forced our hand into kind of moving on to their competition. Or we have been so excited about some businesses that we've worked with that it's really just strengthened our love of the brand and has really created that halo effect where we have an overall just great view of the business. So are you ready?
Yeah, it's been fun living real life. And then when you have experiences and you're like, hey, this would be a great talking point on the podcast.
Yeah. And it's interesting is like we've actually experienced it with a couple of our masterminders, or we've been working with them on the experience of the brand. And then also just like Minna said, like in our life, because by the way, my birthday was last week. Minna ordered me my birthday present like how many weeks ago?
I ordered it a week in advance thinking, hey, this is plenty of time, 7 days for her to get this gift. And I asked her today and she still has not received the darn thing. And it's been 2 weeks.
2 weeks. And there's been no notification of delay or anything, right?
No notification. I did dig to see what day I ordered it, and I ordered it on June 5th. So a week before, right? Because June 12th is your birthday.
And then it's June 20th now.
Yeah. Where the heck is that present? You know?
And this is coming from an Amazon master who's used to, Amazon Prime and shipping her stuff Amazon Prime. And that's something we talk about with people a lot too, where expectations of customers, where you live in this sort of Prime world and your expectations of things happening faster. But I think it's very much about being really clear with your customers. Like, if you told me it's going to take 5 to 10 days to process this and then like up to 7 days to ship it, then you know what you're getting into when you're ordering it. So I wonder, did you get any information on all that?
No, I contacted them and I asked them if they can leave out the invoice, so then you wouldn't know, how much I paid for one. And then I said, can you throw in a little note in there, even if it's just typed out or whatever? And I wrote, hey Jacqueline, have a great day. Your biz bestie or whatever. I don't know. I can't remember what I wrote. And I said, it can just even go into the pick list or whatever. Sometimes the pick list is in there and doesn't have the prices. And then they wrote me back and said, I'm sorry, we don't offer any customization. And that was it, and I was like, well, I'll just tell her she's getting a package because, she won't know who it's from because it will say from them. But then how do you know? I mean, you could be getting multiple packages for all I know, or 0 from this one never coming. So that's where it's at, is where is that present? We have no idea.
But when you were ordering it, did you see any, was there any indication on how long it would take to process the order and ship it?
No, and I didn't look, to be honest, really. I figured a week was good. I mean, I didn't order on Amazon where I knew it's going to be within 2 days. So I thought, okay, a week is pretty good. And then there's that weekend time. So sometimes USPS will have that additional Saturday, right? So I thought it was okay. But yeah, 2 weeks is a long time. But it is coming from LA. So I don't know. I mean, there is some just I need
an LA present for an LA girl stuck in New Jersey. Thank you.
Yes. And so I figured, well, even with that amount of time, if they get it out in a few days, it should be good. But, it might be a day or two late. But this is a full week later and still nothing.
So I love Minna and I so appreciate you sending me a gift. So thank you. But this is just a really good sort of learning lesson for everybody where setting expectations with your customers, right? So being really clear about those dates with them, because then there's assumptions, whether it's assumptions of 2 weeks is enough time or 2 weeks is not enough time, where each company actively works in different ways. I have clients that maybe their productions are late and they had an expected release date. And I just said, as long as you're upfront with your customers and you tell them like, it's running late, this is happening, let me throw a discount your way, I'll send an extra gift or whatever it is. But as long as you're communicating, they're communicating. If they're really not happy with the timeline of it, you could also opt for them to cancel, right? But so that leads us into all of the things we want to talk about today.
Yeah. A lot of the times people will tell you, think about what your unique selling point is. Unique selling point. They're beating you over the head with what's your unique selling point. But honestly, sometimes products are not that unique.
Yeah.
So the way to get around that or to think about it and reframe it so you can better get ahead of your competition is to think about it as a competitive advantage. What's your competitive advantage that's not your unique selling point, as in the products or the product features and benefits, right? So how can you do better than your competition without only solely relying on unique selling point? So that's kind of what the episode is going to be about.
And what's interesting is I had a client yesterday, a potential client, and we were talking, and she's doing a clothing line, and the clothing line looked like other clothing lines I've seen before. Beautiful photos. It looked like something I'd seen before, but the differentiating part of her stuff was that it was art that her parents created. So she was actually using art. Was that anywhere front and center on the website? No. So if I found my way there, I would have been looking at the clothes, but not understanding the story. So there's two different things there. But one of the things I said was that unique selling point about the actual product, how to position that or stand out. So there's obviously your stories, but today we want to sort of talk about different things you could do to your business outside of even like your physical product to make you stand out from your competition, to make you get ahead. So speaking of what we were talking about, the first thing would be customer service. So awesome, amazing, incredible, unexpected, fantastic customer service.
Yeah, I got to tell you a story though, which is so funny. So Suri and I were out. Suri's my 8-year-old daughter, and I was like so tired and so burnt out, right? And I was like, okay, how about we go to Chick-fil-A and we go through the drive-through because Mama doesn't want to go inside anywhere. And she was like, yes, Chick-fil-A, because we hadn't been there in forever. So we're driving up to the thing, and I see two people out by the drive-through with clipboards, and I'm like, oh, last thing I want to do is talk to anybody. So we go up there and I was like, hey, is your, speaker broken? She's like, no, during lunchtime, we actually come out here and take orders in person. And I was like, oh, that must be horrible. And she's like, yeah, it gets really hot sometimes. But honestly, I did not want to talk to anybody. So I was like, oh, this is the reason why I went to the drive-thru, so I didn't have to talk to anybody. So I go around the corner, and what do you know? A freaking guy at a podium. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So I pull up and he's like, hi, Minna, which was nice. I felt bad after that. He's like, hi, Minna, just to confirm your order, here's what it is and here's your receipt. I was like, okay, great, thanks. And then we get to the thing, my third person I have to talk to. And she's like, okay, here's your order, Minna. And I was like, oh, awesome, thanks. But I was not in the mood for great customer service. And I was going through the drive-thru to not talk to anybody. So here's the funny part, you guys, is Jacqueline always talks about the horrible customer service in New Jersey, whereas in Iowa, I'm complaining about having too good of customer service.
Why are you talking to me? Why are you smiling?
I know. A clipboard, really.
You're
Can
like,
I
just
just
go
talk to a
behind the
machine?
glass. You like the people Jacqueline deals with at the Starbucks drive-thrus.
Yes.
You
And
don't
I
even
was
look at
like,
me in the eyes.
and the guy under the umbrella and behind the podium, I was like, come on.
They do that at In-N-Out in Los Angeles.
Oh,
Like
really?
where if the lines get really long, they actually have like multiple people back like through, so you don't have to get up to that point. So they can go through the line and take orders faster since the line's so long. But damn those customer service people.
So that's what we mean about customer service. So Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out are doing a competitive advantage of having stellar customer service. Does that work with everybody? No. Will that stop me from going to Chick-fil-A? Probably not. I was just in a, in a
Like, I'm
mood.
not going anymore. They're so nice.
Boycott.
You have a hashtag. Too nice, don't go. Um, but that was the mood that you were in, and obviously we go to places that it was the mood you were in. Minna, like she's talked about being an extrovert, introvert. That sometimes you just don't. It takes a lot of energy for you to talk to people.
Yeah, and 3 people for an order, you know? So I was like, "Come on,
Give me
I
my
can't."
fries.
And then you feel like you have to be friendly back, so it's like pulling this energy from you, and like, "Oh my gosh, just give me my damn burger."
You're like, I'm gonna eat cow now. Thanks.
So, yeah. So that was an example of customer service that was great, but at the same time, like, you can't please everybody all the time, and that's okay, but they are just selling when you look at it, chicken sandwiches, right? So there's tons and tons of restaurants that are selling that, and then you have to not really you have to on top of looking at unique selling point, you have to look at competitive advantage as well.
Is your Chick-fil-A closed on Sundays?
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
I think they're
Uh-huh.
closed everywhere. So, all right. So this is one thing I want you to do, our listeners to do, and this is something I did some years back. I want you to think about 3 companies that have incredible customer service that you've just really enjoyed, like the entire brand and customer service. And so for me, I'll just point out I've done this exercise before for my business. Virgin America, when Virgin America still was, which is like the issue of my life because I was like a loyal member and grew my points and
Are they
everything.
not
But
around anymore?
they sold to Alaska, Virgin America
Mm.
specifically. And Alaska actually has exceptional customer service. So at least they align the brands in that way. But Virgin was very forward, even with like the way the planes were designed and whatnot. So Virgin America. And the other one for me was Nespresso, the expensive coffee pods. And this was some years back that I did this, like let's call it 5 years ago. So Nespresso was starting to have like their pop-up boutique shops. They gave you like a really nice leather keychain so that when you went in, like you were a registered customer, they knew what you had purchased in the past. It was a very like high touch experience there where they only sell their pods. There's really specific places they sell it. So even if you can find at Target an espresso machine, you cannot buy the coffee there. So the coffee still has to come from Nespresso. And then the stores, they have little cafes in there. So you get to try a coffee. They feel like little French patisseries. They have beautiful cakes and then the experience. So that's something that I really liked about that. And then Virgin America, like the customer service was exceptional, including being on the plane.
Yeah. So one of the things that I used to do when I first started so this was with the chalk markers that I used to do, which was my first private label product on Amazon. So while I was figuring out the manufacturing for little labels, I was doing private labeling. So this was for chalk markers. And the initial people that ordered my chalk markers, I sent them a thank you note. And it was a printed thank you note, but it was a custom one, graphic design background and all. And it was a note saying, "Thank you so much for ordering from our small biz. We consist, basically, it was a brand story. My daughter helps me, and we're so excited to be on this venture of being on Amazon, and we cannot appreciate it more for your support." And then I signed my signature. So these were scanned in. And then my daughter did too. And Suri was in kindergarten at that time. So she was SURI, and she would make those big circles with her eyes,
Oh,
so it
yeah.
looks so kiddish and so adorable. And I got a lot of reviews from that. So I sent out maybe it was a lot, like 400 or something, my first 400 purchases. And then it would show them, don't forget to leave your review, but then they would have to physically go back onto Amazon and do it. And I had a couple of reviews that said, "I've never gotten a note from an online business, and this was above and beyond." So even things like that, where it's like later on and not even a handwritten note in your purchase, it leaves a lasting impression on people. And then include your, cute little handwriting of a 5-year-old, even better,
Yeah. So I think like thinking about that, just going back to like the airline idea, the reason I loved Virgin also was that there was always a changing table on every plane. I had been on American or Delta, something where I was traveling alone with my infant child who had just pooped. I went to the bathroom and there was no changing table. And I asked the flight attendant, I was like, what do I do? Are there any flight changing tables? She's like, no. She's like, you could change them on the seat of the toilet. I was like, have you been into a bathroom? Like, on a plane and the seat.
So
And how are you
gross.
going to lay a baby on that? Like, it's not even that you could barely get your own bed on it. And the whole back row of the plane had all of the flight attendant stuff on it. And so there was an entire back row that was empty. I looked at the person sitting next to me because the middle seat was open. And I was like, do you mind if I change my kid here on the seat? Which, by the way, everybody, that's poop on a seat, right? Like where people sit, which I wasn't wanting to do. And then the guy behind me had the whole row to himself, and he was really nice. Like, he's like, come back here, use my seat. So it was like, he was awesome. That flight, I never flew that airline again because of that customer service, which made me even more committed to, let's say, a Virgin America, because how awesome they were, let alone like the plane and what they had, but also them. Like, I remember one time, like somebody had offered to take, like to help me with my kid. I traveled 25 times with Oliver by myself, his first year of life, on an airplane across the country. So all I was looking for were people that were helpful. So I want everyone, all of our listeners, to think about their business and how experiences that you've had have lent way to you being even more dedicated to a brand or pulled you away from a brand. And then think about how you can do that for your customers, whether you know, it's easy returns. Even if you're not easy returns, how do you make their life easier? Or how do you respond to their emails? How do you just make them dedicated because they know that they can come to you and that you're there for them? So it leads us into what Mina was talking about, which is personalization. So that kind of goes from customer service into personalization of like a letter from an online store, right?
Yeah, even if you have a invoice in there, you can write thanks so much for your order, Mina, and a little happy face is what I always do. Or we have these like black vinyl heart stickers. They're like for chalk markers, which we don't use anymore. So I just stick those on there as well, and they can reuse those. And so even those little freebies that are unexpected, that they're not expecting to get. Sometimes I will double people's orders, because they've ordered a ton and I want them to try out a specific thing. Like I'll usually put in the blank ones, and then that way they can use them for their home and everything. And I know that they'll like them. But
Do
things
you
like
let them
that.
know it's free or
Yeah, I do. I
okay.
write on the thing. I'll say threw in some freebies for you. Enjoy, and then I'll write like a little heart or something. And
Oh,
those are for people that I notice their names coming back up. So I'll do that for specific people and not so much for everybody.
which is awesome. Like, because then you go to the person that's like, do they call you and tell you they got too many, or do they just kind of take it?
People do feel bad about it. That's why I always say that it's free, because otherwise they might feel guilty that they got double. That's kind of how my mother-in-law is. She'll be like, oh, I got too many. Here you go. Let me pay. I insist on paying for them, something like that. So then I always, I just give them for free, and then I make a note of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So personalization. So customer service aligning with personalization in terms of we're not, so there's a few things. Like, think about whether you're walking into a boutique, and how they might make it. Like, I love when I go to toy stores and they have wrapping paper there.
Uh-huh.
And so like if you, because most of the time if I'm going to a toy store, I'm buying a gift, and if they could wrap it for me, there's something that makes it special, removes like a thing that I'd have to do. I'd have to go buy paper and a bow, and it's never going to look as cute. So if they're just doing it, it's actually worth to me the price of paying for like a physical toy store and not having to then, and getting the wrapping, let's say, for free.
Do you have Bed Bath and Beyond where you are?
I do.
They have free gift wrapping stations, and you wrap it yourself, but they have really cool stuff like a bow maker and things like that.
Yeah.
So, and fancy wrap. So then like if you have a wedding gift, I used to always get wedding gifts there and wrap them up in there. And they have their signature one too. It's always the same wrapping paper, so you know that that thing is from Bed Bath and Beyond, and people associate it with that. And then it's like a gorgeous bow because it's from a bow maker,
Yeah.
and then it looks really nice too. But those are free, and I love that.
Which is a reason that, like, if you were driving and going into a physical store, you'd be like, oh, that solves a problem for me. You could purchase it and the wrapping is right out, like outside of the register, right? So things like that, I think for me that are kind of personalized because it's meeting a need that I need versus like running to wherever and trying to get I had a birthday present to give someone and I didn't have a gift. I had ordered it on Amazon or a gift bag. And so I was at like a New York CVS basically trying to find a gift bag big enough for this giant kid toy. And in New York, like at this one, they didn't have giant bags, so I kind of put myself in this like panic of how am I going to give this kid this present and not look like it's in like a shopping bag.
um Yeah, and this gift that I sent you, your B-Day gift, is really cool that we could have used it as the gift for we've been trying to pick a gift for people that have been podcast guests and maybe people that are in our mastermind, basically our go-to gift for people. And this could have been the gift had they been like, yeah, totally. I could throw in a typed up note and then they could have gotten tons of orders from us. But now, wah wah, you know.
And for your birthday that's coming up next month, I
You're gonna
also
have to
was
order it now.
well, I started talking about it because of this, but I also am looking at doing something like personalized because like I could get you something, we could each get each other things, like we could get, I don't know, we're moms, but something that we think that the other person would like. But if it's personalized, it makes it more special. So there's also the personalization where people can pay more and have your product personalized for them, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even if they pay a couple bucks more, or that's if they have that note card or whatever. But if they are you talking about personalization as in like the first letter of their name or things like that?
I think, yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, like, for example, if you're going to buy somebody, I don't know, like a bag, but then if the bag could be personalized, it kind of, you'd be like, oh, that's even more special. I'm not sure if they're going to love this bag, but if I personalize it for them, it might feel more special. So there's that.
Yeah, and they will never give it away.
Right.
Well, maybe if I had an M, but I use this one Mina bag. It's from what's that? Bean one, LL Bean. Mina on there, and that's what I use for my computer when I'm at home, not when I'm traveling. But I love it because it says Mina on there, and I got it as a wedding gift, when I was a bridesmaid. So yeah, it does make it. It gives it this significance that the rest don't have.
And then also the personalization of just like you said, like that handwritten note as a thank you. Um, Something that's like you order all the time. I wanted to throw you in a freebie. It's like, oh, there's actual people behind this business, not robots.
Yeah, and it could be just like even a little pin that says "You're awesome" or something. Something that is like 10 cents, but people like that kind of stuff. So think about it that way. That could be your competitive advantage. That kind of folds into customer service because it is just another level of customer service. But should we move on to the next one?
Yeah. So the next one would be location.
Yeah, location. So this could be a really big competitive advantage. I feel like, especially around here, people rally behind the people that are local to them. So if I were to do a Facebook ad that said, Ankeny Mom just launched, labels company, and all the Ankeny schools get 30% off, you know, or all the Ankeny moms get 30% off, and they have the coupon code, people in Ankeny are more likely to click on that, or that you had a press release that went out. That's the whole idea of the press release and being local, is that people love to support people who are local. Even if I said Midwest, right? I mean, you get that with people that are Southern too. There's such a loyalty to being Southern, and probably East Coast, West Coast too. Jacqueline is torn between the two.
If it were the 90s, I wouldn't know which way to go.
I know, Biggie Smalls or Tupac.
I was actually just explaining to a much younger person what used to be between East Coast, West Coast gangster rap. And that Snoop Dogg, who's now a game show host, was not that in the early 90s. But location also. So I was consulting a client the other day, and she's going to be in Florida for an event, like a trade show event with her product. And even that, I was like, what could she layer on top of it? So her location of being in Florida, like, can she pitch her business to some local news stations or bloggers or stores or anything like that? That's like, we're physically going to be here trying to get people within that location to visit. So Mina and I have a bunch of travel plans for the rest of the year. And we're going to be in Southern California for an event, and we're going to do an in-person mastermind when we're there. And we're thinking about other places that we can go that maybe our clients or our listeners are, that we can throw an event. So for example, if I'm on the East Coast, or let's say call it New York, I'm in New York, I could put together an event for people that are my New York people, or if you're in a Facebook group, like, shout out to Hoboken Moms group, but a group that I'm in, even within that community, if I was selling little labels, I'd be like, hey moms, like, take a look at this. And I've got these different communities I'm a part of. So location, location, location. And if it's not even your personal location, if you're going to be somewhere, I've told clients, like, try and do a 1-day like pop-up shop at a store, at one of the stores that you go to. Like if you're going on a vacation or you have a wedding to go to or something like that, can you also layer that on?
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be slinging product. You know, you don't have to be selling those products to those local people. It could be collaborations, like those Hoboken moms you could be bringing offline to online. So collaborating for an online giveaway or something. So let's say one of those Hoboken moms, they're not in the mom biz products, but they have, I don't know, a service-based company that could collaborate with them for giveaways, you know? So anything like that where you're able to collaborate with people and it has a local aspect to it, I think it does really well. This episode was brought to you by our new mastermind program, Holiday to Halo. You get the guidance of both myself and Jacqueline as your coaches inside an amazing group of fellow product-based business owners. Starting in September, we'll be getting a head start and ramping up to make a big impact on sales for the Cyber 5, which is Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday. Then on to Christmas revenue strategy. And to boost your growth into the new year, we'll be setting your business up for Halo sales into Q1. We would love for you to join us. Go to theproductboss.com/mastermind for more information. And we're back, everyone. So, in that meantime of having that ad pop up, we actually lost internet. We went to a completely separate day, and we are re-recording this second half of this episode. So it might sound a little bit differently. Just to recap what we did before ad, we talked about your competitive advantage for customer service and location. So being local. So those are your two things that even though you might not have a special unique feature of your product, you also would be able to gain a competitive advantage by having stellar customer service and being where you are, you know, people rallying behind you for your local appeal, I guess.
Hashtag local.
Yes, exactly. And so going back into it, competitive advantage, again, is really what you're doing that your competitors are not doing. And sometimes your product alone is not enough to stand out. You know how we're always hitting everybody over the head with unique selling point. These are just things that you can think about that can add to that. So next one, I know that Jacqueline was really excited to say this little bit of of you and your, so the next one is being you. You are your unique, you know, your competitive advantage. So your connections, your network, your skills. So Jacqueline, do you remember what your cool saying was?
No, do you?
Yeah. Yes, I do. It was know how or know someone. So if you don't have the know how, you have to know someone that knows the know how. Do you want to get
You
into
guys,
that a little bit?
yeah, you guys, I mean, we're kind of cracking up over here looking at each other because we recorded this, I think maybe 2 weeks ago,
Yeah,
and
we're digging
all,
deep in our memories.
all of Mina's electric went out in the entire city. And so we had recorded the rest of this podcast same day, but via phone recordings. And then she was listening to it and it didn't come out that great. So we're actually recording it now because we were so excited about this episode. So bear with us. But
Yeah, it was such good information. I was like, we cannot cut out the whole entire episode. Let's just re-record the second half again.
so anyway, so your know-how or know someone. So that's part of, I mean, as for my business, the Designer Consulting Co-op, part of the reason that we're successful and people hire us is because we know someone. So whether you're hiring a professional to sort of coach you through it and then connect you. So that's a big part of my business, is that I connect my clients with the right people to, let's say, create their clothing line, their accessory line, even to the point I have some clients that are working with sales reps that I know that are helping sell their business. So, or sell their product. So that's part of it. And also knowing someone. I mean, there's also, for example, I mean, Minna, when you did little labels, you figured out how to know someone. You found the right manufacturer through, for you to get these labels done, because you found, you know, you found this contractor that did something, and then you're like, oh, I think they can do this. And that's how you sort of created your label. So that's your competitive advantage, because you actually have that contractor that's yours and super top secret and is proprietary, which is why Little Labels is so successful and made in the US.
Yeah, for sure. So let's say you find like the people, so let's say I'm not manufacturing in the US. There's people that have secret freight forwarders, for instance, that check the quality control of their inventory that comes in from China. They do not share those people. Also, if let's say they have a fabulous graphic designer on their team, or a web developer, or a marketer, they don't share those people. So that can be your competitive advantage, is your skill set or somebody else's skill set, or just that connection of your network. So one of our masterminders, her dad was into manufacturing, and she was, what would be.
He creates like luggage trunks, like beautiful trunks. And
Mhm.
so and so she kind of grew up in that business. And when she decided to actually, I just shouted her out on our Instagram. So it's Katharina out of the UK. And so she has this lineage to her dad where he's creating these big trunks that are beautiful. And so she created these mini ones as purses. So she had the ability to quickly fast forward, knowing like the design, the material, knowing what she wanted to do, and then getting to the right contractor. Plus her dad, I mean, her dad's in the business. So she kind of grew up knowing how to run this business.
And she didn't have to go through, even though I have that manufacturer now, it took me 12 people that I talked to before I heard something of a, maybe we can do it. With her, she already had the in of somebody teaching her the language and showing her this can be done, this can't be done. And she was able to adjust her idea accordingly and then really make it something that was feasible and possible in the manufacturing world, because sometimes our dreams don't come true in the capabilities of a machine, being manufactured. So that's something I would friggin' love to have a manufacturing in somewhere, and then just come up with a product that was within my scope of things and then adjust it accordingly. That would be really cool.
But let's dig deeper, even like your connections and your network. So outside of that person. So for example, her name's Katie from Katharina. We're going to put this in the show notes because I friggin' love her bags and I posted them all over New York on our Instagram.
I know. I saw that bag and I wanted to get the twin one. So I might be twinning with you soon. I love the black and white one that you showed, So side note there.
Side note. And it is so cute. But what I wanted to say though is like, let's just talk about network. She was in our mastermind, right? So she did a mastermind group coaching with us. And then through our group, so through our Facebook community, met Lauren Copal, who's been on the podcast as well. They are now accountability partners. And I know a sales rep that because she hasn't really brought the company over into the United States yet. And I know a sales rep that could sort of fast forward her by connecting her to a couple sales reps to bring her over to this side of the pond. So just by being a part of our mastermind, being in our community, she was able to find an accountability partner who also lives on the East Coast, who could probably connect her with some places because Lauren's so good at connecting people. And then also by working with us, that I don't have sales reps for everybody, but sometimes there's something I can kind of fast forward and take people a little bit further. So with her, I connected her with a sales rep. So right there, she grew her network and her connection. So I want you guys to also think, who do you know? So we've also talked about somebody else in our mastermind actually has a really good friend who is a publicist. And so by working with that publicist was able to sort of shortcut her, or not working, but giving her, friend advice and say, this is how you should send it to this celebrity and that celebrity. And so think about the people and what they can do for you, because people are always willing to do favors, or if you give them a gift or a really great thank you, that's what's going to really push you forward. That's how so much of my designer consulting co-op, the business that comes to me, is through vendors I work with, or fabric mills that are like, oh, you want to start a clothing line? You should call Jacqueline at Designer Consulting Co-op, because technically you sound like you have no idea of what you're doing. So call this person.
Exactly. It really is. You either have to know it or know someone, but you are your competitive advantage. So dig a little bit deep on who you know and who you could tap into, and also dig deep into your own personal experiences. So my graphic design background has really led me to really be competitive. So I have this brilliant idea.
As always.
It could be, which might make them all, the same level brilliant, which is not so brilliant. But so when I first started Fuji Design, which was my graphic design company, I sent out direct mail. And that was how I got my first client, which was a commercial real estate management company. And it was all the way in Boston. And they got one of my brochures in the mail. Keep in mind, this is when direct mail was in. Okay. So we're talking 2004 here. And so I got a really huge client. Commercial real estate is no joke. They make money. And so they were so impressed by my brochure that they hired me during that time. And that was my first official client. So during that time, I was trying to get onto Elance, which is what Upwork is now. And so it's like a forum, not a forum, it's like a platform where people can buy jobs, like they can hire freelancers. Well, I was barely getting anybody on there, and certainly not somebody as big as a commercial real estate company. So thinking about that, I was like, you know what? I got my big break for graphic design with direct mail. So, brilliant idea here. I'm going to do a direct mailing for little labels, doing a friends and family discount. Plus, direct mail is not that expensive compared to Facebook ads. Well, I guess that's pretty subjective, but like a postcard, for instance, is 35 cents to send out. I could send them a postcard. I could send out 1,000, that's $350, and I could see what their response rate is, buy a coupon, and maybe I get a daycare that gets that, and then they buy a whole bunch of labels, and then that in essence, so 2004, I'm going to do some quick math here, 14 years later, it becomes my big break for direct mail. So what do you think?
So what do you think? So let's switch this into coaching. But are you sending you're sending a postcard talking about little labels? And with
I'm going to do it as our biggest sale of the year.
Okay.
So it would be a postcard saying biggest sale of the year, friends and family, 35% off. You're getting this because you're on our list of VIP people or something. I don't know.
And how do you get their addresses?
Well, I have them from Amazon.
Okay. Oh, so Amazon. Oh yeah. So Amazon shares the addresses with you?
Yeah, because you get to see who you're shipping to, but you don't get their phone number or their email address, but you do have their addresses.
So you can niche down and just send to like anyone that's ordered, let's say in Iowa.
Yeah, I might do IO.
So, okay. So then my next thing that I really liked what you said was the preschools. So what if instead you sent, I don't know if you've got like a one sheet that you could send, like instead of your 3 packs, if you could send just one single sheet as, well, that's a postcard, or you you look up the nursery schools and preschools, and actually instead your mailing goes to preschools. Like if you're able to research that.
Yeah, it's a little bit more. So the envelope would be a cost, let's say 10 cents. Okay. The mailing would be 50 cents, and then the cost of samples, and then let's say a cost of a letter. So we're talking more like $1 or, like 80 cents versus, but you know what? People might be more willing to open up an envelope than they are willing to look at a postcard. So, direct mail in itself. So thinking about that competitive advantage, I know a lot about direct mail. That was my start. And that was what I did a lot of. I only did print pieces. There was always people that wanted to hire me for website stuff. I didn't do any of that stuff. Then I got into annual reports, but I always did brochures, postcards. So I think that is a mystery platform of marketing that I know a lot about that the average person might not off of Amazon. So competitive advantage.
Yeah. And local, if we're going back to local and marketing, because there's like nextdoor.com also where they'll actually ask you if you want to send 30 postcards to your neighbors to get them on it, because it's all about community, right?
Yeah, it's called Every Door Direct Mailing. They call it EDDM. You can do that anywhere. You can actually niche all the way down to some areas income. So, and then also how many people they have in their household. Keep in mind, this is from the census too, so it might be a little bit off by a couple years. But let's say I'm looking for somebody that has an average of, when I was looking at it in Ankeny, because originally my idea was for Ankeny where I live, I was looking for households that had like 2.5 average person, which means that they have like a little one there usually, in a mix of like an up-and-coming neighborhood. And then I was also looking for people that had more of an income. So then they weren't like apartment dwellers, that maybe their kids weren't in school yet and settled down. So yeah, it's called Every Door Direct Mail. You can have specific sizes that are bigger. There's definitely a lot of room for creative thinking.
Yeah, that's a lot. So let's move on to the next one.
Yeah. So the
Size.
next one, size. Yes. So my
It's not
biggest
the size that counts, or does it?
it definitely counts in this scenario. So just think, so Avery Labels is my main competitor. They're way bigger than I am, but my advantage is that I'm very small, so I can pivot a lot quicker. Wouldn't you think that that would be easier for testing things out?
Yeah, because big companies have boardrooms of people. There's so many levels of people that have to sit down and make decisions. From marketing to, different, like the VP of whatever it is, everyone has to sit down and make these decisions. So when you have a small business, you can pivot, change, update, add designs, do all of these things. Obviously, we want you to have some sort of research to it, but most of the time you're the one making that decision. You don't have to run it by a bunch of people. Maybe you have some investors that have a say in the business, but then you have proof to the pudding. Like you're basically like, this is why we're going to do this because I see this happening. So the size of your business also allows you to quickly, like you can see a problem, navigate through it and quickly change, or you can see a trend and add to your business to follow that trend.
Yeah, and you could do it very quickly. So, whereas this is basically a reframe of mind. Some people might be like, "Oh, I'm such a little ant compared to my elephant competitor, and there's no way I can get up to that point. They can just squash me like an ant." But really, you can pivot very, very quickly. I should have used a mouse, right? Because then you can stomp on the mouse
Yeah.
and the elephant. Anyway, so you're in the mouse now, and and you can move around where the competitor is a slow mover, and you're a quick mover, and you're just able to quickly get to where they are, or even have a little bit of the market.
I do want to say though, they're not your competitor. Like let's just say I have people that come to me, they want to start an activewear brand, and I ask them who their competitor is, and they say Lululemon. No, that's not. Right? It's not your competitor. All of these big businesses now you are a bigger business for sure, and you're super niche, right? So there's a part of Avery Labels that you compete with, but they're not as cute as you. Like they're different. They're like office products, right? And where they're sold, it's officey.
But
Are they
Avery Labels
anything?
bought out Mabel's Labels,
Oh,
so they are my competitor.
does
The
Avery
Mabel's
Labels want to buy out Little Labels now? Let's see.
Right? Oh my gosh, they got like I don't even know what it was. I'm sure it was like 10 figures. But so they're a Canadian company, but they do mostly custom stuff. But they do have a line of like right on washable labels, just like me. They're formatted different, like up on a sheet that looks completely different. So I'm guessing it's just different machine, right? And so that's just a part of their business. I'm not sure what they're going to do with it. And that I didn't even discover that till recently. And I think that the buyout was like a few years ago. So, yeah, Avery Labels for especially my clothing labels, because they're, I don't know, I have a lot of nursing home people that buy those clothing labels. So they are for sure like we look at their prices to adjust our prices type of thing. But that's because Amazon puts you on the same, playing field as them. And I'm on the same page. So digitally, you could be their competitor because you're on the same page or on the same listing thing as them, and maybe not so much in like thinking of Lululemon and a boutique.
Yeah. But then if let's say you go to revolve.com and you're looking at the brands there. Well, yeah, they might be much bigger brands like Aloe Yoga, and they've got like flagship stores now in New York and LA. So obviously there's a lot of money there. And so you have to define yourself as like why, and we'll get into this next, is like a niche, but why your brand? Like why do they need to buy another pair of yoga pants? Why? And then the fact that you can be innovative, because as a smaller company, you can be innovative and creative, which is also one of the other points that we're going to talk about. But you can just test things and do things with less risk if you're able to do them in smaller batches, like smaller quantities. And then, like you said, yeah, I agree. Actually, online, some of these people are their competitors.
Yeah. So the next one, as Jacqueline was alluding to, is niche. Your competitive advantage could be a particular niche that you pick. So for me, I could make my labels into we were talking about like Jeep enthusiast. I could put like Jeep on there, though I shouldn't if it's licensed. Let's say I do, and I could sell it to enthusiasts that love Jeep and are willing to spend the money on it. So I think that when you pick your niche, that could truly be your standalone competitive advantage, is the niche that you choose.
Yeah. So we had a client named Game Day Panties, and basically what they did is they were very similar to the trend in underwear. Let's say were these like hanky panky lace top thongs, basically underwear. And Victoria's Secret sold it. All these other places were selling it. It was like it's a very popular shaped underwear for women. But what their niche was is that they did them in game colors, like game day. So Lakers, purple and yellow, I'm just going to refer to LA people since that's my thing, but like, or like, let's say the New York Yankees, like, what are they, gray and blue or white and blue? I think Dodgers are white and blue. If it was like UCLA or UC schools, it's blue and yellow or crimson and gold. So what they did is they were able to niche down even more so to like a trendy underwear, but to people who were sports enthusiasts and that wore the colors of the teams that they supported. And so that was like super, super niche down, which then allowed them to compete in this really flooded market where, let's say, Hanky Panky started this underwear, and then Victoria's Secret, which is mass market, was selling them. And so their competitive advantage was one, quality. Two, they made them in the US. And the main thing was that the color combinations that you could get were so specific. They didn't need everybody to buy them. They just needed people who cared about the sports team's colors to buy them.
Yeah, and this is super effective if your niche is fanatical about something special. Game day people are very superstitious. They want to wear the colors. If it's like people who are really into boating or really into hiking or, even foodies or something, like having a niche that's fanatical about something and willing to pay the money and has the money is something that could really be your competitive advantage. And they're willing to buy products that fit into that parameter.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I mean, your niche could also go down to something customizable. Not everyone should do things that are customizable, but if someone's paying extra. So for example, Pottery Barn Kids they were one of the first ones to start bringing customization back to kid stuff, where I feel like when we were younger, there was always that like paint on customized type stuff, like very hand done, where you can get kids towels with their names on it. You can get backpacks with their like names on it, all these things with embroidery. And so when you're looking, like when you're willing to spend that money on the backpack, if you're buying it from, Pottery Barn Kids, so it's already like a really expensive backpack, you're putting that money in, you're willing to pay that extra $7, $12 for that customization because it kind of, it adds. So even if they're not fanatical, there's things that are very niche that you can imagine who the Pottery Barn Kids parents are, even based on the ads that they're doing and the way that the rooms are created and stuff. Like, that these people have more money to spend. They buy like, I'm not going to say the best, but they spend a lot of money on ridiculous things.
And they spend on things that are from Pottery Barn. So
Yeah.
the specific designs, another parent can see, oh, they have that from Pottery Barn, and then they spent the extra $7 or $12 or whatever it is. So then it's just like really that niche has money to spend, and they want people to be aware of the fact that that's from Pottery Barn.
It's kind of status.
Yeah. And if it was like a plain one that had no design and pretty ambiguous of where it was from, they would not buy it.
And when I say ridiculous, I am that ridiculous person because, side note, my daughter's obsessed with princesses, and I don't love the generic like Disney princess type things, right? Like a giant bell on a shirt, not my deal. But they had a really cute printed like backpack with all the Disney princesses and a water bottle and like sheets. And it was like a classier, prettier way of doing it. I bought into all of that. I don't even know why I spent the money I did on a backpack and sheets, but I did it because for me, I can't stop my daughter from loving princesses, but I do not want to buy her like Disney store type stuff.
This has been an ongoing battle between me and my mother-in-law. She loves like a big Dora head on a shirt.
Yeah, can't stand
it. I just can't, like it just drives me bonkers. And then I have to wear those clothes on my kids, a big Dora head and like super tacky stuff. And I'm just like, oh, But the crazy thing is that my youngest, at least, loves that stuff. Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing she loves more than a freaking giant size princess head, that's over the top on a super frilly, tacky looking shirt. Like, yeah,
Well,
so.
those companies know how to market to our kids. Let's just say that. Um, but so that's kind of like the niche. So then I think the last one that we want to tackle is creativity. So creativity, I think, is overall being an entrepreneur, being a product boss. Overall, you need to have creativity because really you need to think on your toes, think outside the box, and decide how you're going to be different. And so, what would you say about creativity?
I think that there's definitely more creative people than others. And if the more creative you are, the more successful you'll be because you can figure out how to solve a problem. You can figure out how to market to people differently. You stand out where everybody else is like blending in. I definitely have been more creative just by having Jacqueline in my world. She's super creative. I'm super creative. Put together, we're freaking brilliant.
So we say ourselves.
Yeah, so we say. So what is that you say? Self-dubbed. But
Self-dubbed geniuses.
but I'm just saying, like, people can up-level your creativity, and if you can be the type of person that points that out for people or that brings that out in someone else, that you're like, hey, you know what we're doing in this industry, you should do that in this industry too. Or one of the examples that I like to give is, so there's like a lot of brand ambassadors. Let's say you have brand ambassadors for your clothing boutique or whatever. Well, one of the things that you could do instead of just having them be brand ambassadors and have pretty photos that you post up on Instagram, those people could truly become the voice of your brand and become your bloggers too. So right there, a tweak on what a normal role in a marketing strategy is, where they're just normally ambassadors. Ambassadors are usually photo heavy. But let's say, hey, you want to be our blogger too and submit one blog post per month? We would love that. And then that is like a creative idea. We're adding on to their role or tweaking something into a creative way, but super simple that could help you, gain more market share.
And then, as a product-based biz, I sort of mentioned this to Minna before, which is it's a lot of things, but let's just say cuffs couture. So when I had thought about cuffs couture, wrist wallets were not an invention. There's patents for wrist wallets. Lululemon had them. They were like kind of cheap zipper ones, when you're running, like where to put your cash, like while you're out, for people who are really jogging and stuff like that. So it was for outdoor enthusiasts. It was for sports people. And when I did it, I basically pivoted the idea and moved it into how I said was like fashion aficionado. I was inspired by a night out with my girlfriends. We were on the dance floor and my bag was getting in the way. And I just wished I could have like had my credit card and lip gloss and key, like key for your car or whatever you were doing. At this point, people are just taking Ubers to clubs. So it's like even more on the out because people don't have their keys anymore. And anyways, there's all sorts of technology that's changed, but my idea was basically shifting it from the sports person to something that was a wearable accessory that was also functional. But you were talking about this, Minna, like when you're the first into a market, that there's a lot of education, like there's a huge learning curve. So that was, I think, the biggest struggle for my business was when I went to trade shows and markets, I literally would stand up and look at people and say, hey, have you heard about cuffs couture? And they're probably like looking around like, oh, she's talking to me. And then why, like, I don't know. Am I supposed to hear about cuffs couture? And then I would go into my spiel. And so it was basically like educating them. Like I would literally, as they're walking by, start opening up the wrist wallet so they could see I had things inside. It was like visual and talking to them. But the harder part was it being physically in a store and the sell through, because you also needed your salesperson to sell it for you. So it's not to say I didn't do well. I mean, I did do well. I had like Kim Kardashian and like Audrina Patridge and Carrie Underwood, like all sorts of people wore them and bought them and sold them across the world. I was like in 60 stores, but there was that learning curve. So I was one of the first to market, but then there was a huge kind of battle against teaching people what I was doing.
Yeah. So let's flip that idea for a second, right? So right now, people have bigger phones and they aren't using cuffs couture like they used to, because you essentially would be fitting your key, let's say your house key and your driver's license and your money, your cash. So let's flip that idea, creatively thinking to make it fit some other idea. So let's say instead now you're going to be targeting it towards millennials who love to travel and love to unplug. So now it's called the Bali cuff or whatever. And, so that has that prestige, right? Bali is beautiful. And then they don't hold their phone in it. It's a secret cuff because when you're traveling internationally, you don't want to have your phone out constantly. And also, you don't want to show your purse, right? You're not going to be having your purse there. So it's like a secret hidden travel cuff that you have let's say your cash and your key. And it's a travel cuff and it's called the Bali cuff. And then now creative idea, different market, uncharted territory again. But it's a different idea of thinking about it and then also making it fit what it could be. It could potentially be. You could be marketing to millennials.
Are you saying I have to go pull out the thousands of them that I just put in the trash?
Yes, you do. Did you not get my Voxer?
So I was trying to get it onto Zulily forever, and they've changed their buyers. And so we're talking about hits. We get people talking about this all the time. Like, what do I do with my product? And for me, it was like, how long am I going to drag these cuffs around? And so Zulily was like, right now we don't have a use for them, and maybe around the holidays. And so I was like, them out of my office. I'm done with these. But they might be in my garage upstairs.
Yeah, get them out of there. I think that we should at least try to remarket them. And Zulily is a platform. This is what people do all the time on Amazon. They have a product. You actually have your own product. They remarket it in a specific way, and they have the platform to do it, So you're not creating the platform. You're not creating your own Cuffs Couture website or Bali Cuffs website. You are going on to somebody else's platform. So Zulily, and marketing it in a theme, millennial travelers, and seeing if it hits. I think it's worth a try.
But this is what brought us together. So thank God for Cuffs Couture.
That's why Jacqueline was so willing to throw them away. You've served your purpose. See you later, Cuffs.
You found me, Minna. We launched a podcast. Because if you're listening to the story, or if you don't know our story, basically I connected with Minna through a community that we were a part of, because I was like, oh, you're selling on Amazon. I have all this extra inventory of cuffs. I want to sell on Amazon. And your advice to me was, unless you're growing this business and scaling it, Amazon's not worth it to just sort of liquidate inventory. So the last year has been milling around on how to liquidate inventory. And so I guess my garbage is not yet the place to liquidate.
No, it definitely is not. You put the effort into moving it into your new house. And
I know.
Probably is like, these damn cuffs. So yeah, dig them out. We are going to do it. And we're just going to do it to test out things, We might come to $1 million idea here.
And all of these ups and downs, just so everybody knows, since we also have our own product businesses, and we also go through this. So we don't have all the answers sometimes when it comes to ourselves, but it's not answers. It's the problem solving. It's like finding solutions and navigating through it, because there's always going to be like rough seas ahead. Let's just do another analogy, like you're on a ship.
I love it.
But there's always going to be something that comes up, and you're always going to be working on your business or in your business. And so it's sort of getting creative with what to do with it. And so we go through it too. So actually, if we do try this, we'll update you guys on what I end up doing with it. All I can think about is that I have to do more photos.
Yeah. But I mean, that's essentially, just time, a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So I think the moral of this episode and the whole complete lesson is that anywhere you are there in your entrepreneurial journey, there's going to be ups and downs, like what Jacqueline said. But you can gain competitive advantages just by tweaking certain things. So going down the list of what we went over today, kind of, split in two, is you can have amazing customer service. You could tap into your local market. You could look at your own connections and your own network. You could really leverage your size and your agility, or your not so much agility, your money power if you're super bonkers big. You could tap into a different niche, or, go deeper into your own niche. And then you could also be just a creative thinker and then head into uncharted territory and be creative and, tweak what you need to do to be your competitive advantage.
So we'd love to hear from you guys. If you want to head over to Facebook and join our community, we would love to chat with you and talk to you about what you feel like your strongest competitive advantage is, what you've done in your business that really was the thing that kind of helped you stand out, or maybe shifted, like catapulted you forward in a way that you didn't have at first, and you took action in something, you did something, and it really moved you forward. So head on over to Facebook, The Product Boss. It's our private community, and we'll leave a link in the show notes for that.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
This episode was brought to you by our new mastermind program, Holiday to Halo. You get the guidance of both myself and Jacqueline as your coaches inside an amazing group of fellow product-based business owners. Starting in September, we'll be getting a head start and ramping up to make a big impact on sales for the Cyber 5, which is Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday. Then on to Christmas revenue strategy. And to boost your growth into the new year, we'll be setting your business up for Halo sales into Q1. We would love for you to join us. Go to theproductboss.com/mastermind for more information.
Loved this episode of the Product Boss podcast? Head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. We would so appreciate it.